Welcome to my channel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slide my Mac away. Right now, I don't need my Mac. This is something that I did a while back ago when I stopped using my MacBook Pro as much as I was and turned around and bought a tablet. This whole video is going to be about this golden thing that is in front of me. Almost 2 years ago, I bought this bad boy. Love this freaking machine. This is my second one. The first and the second, both are gold. This is the only Apple Pencil I've ever purchased. I used this on the first one. I used this on the second one. This is a second generation iPad Pro 12.9 inch, the big one. This video is all about what happens to these machines after 2 years. How has this machine worked for me? Does this machine suck? Does the iPad Pro suck after 2 years? I can give you the answer to that question right now, and that answer is no, it does not suck whatsoever. This thing is a workhorse. I absolutely love this machine. This is probably the best equipment I've ever purchased from Apple in my entire freaking life. I wish that I had bought one even with more storage space. So first, we got a list. I'm only gonna try to have a list so I can stay focused and not stray too far. The storage, they will come. But with me and the way I am right now, I love this thing so much. It is doing so well, even with iPadOS 13.3. This thing is still doing an excellent job. It's the only thing that's better than this device here is the freaking device I'm using right now to record this stuff, which is the freaking iPhone 11. If only I could just get the iPhone 11 and stretch it out like putty and turn it into this, I would be a super happy person, but I can't do that. What I'm gonna have to do instead is continue to ride this machine until this freaking machine blows up in my face. But like I said, I love this machine. First thing is speed. Believe it or not, in this thin little shell, and it's too damn thin, but in this thin little shell, they put 4 gigabytes of RAM. Now, I know you're saying 4 gigabytes of RAM is nothing. My MacBook Pro, I shoved 16 gigabytes of RAM into that freaking into this freaking MacBook Pro. I shoved it in there and it worked, it performed. But you know what it could not do? This laptop could not do? It could not do 4K. Storage space. I opted to go for 264 gigabytes of storage space only because I really needed more space. My first one, the one I gave to my mom, had 32 gigabytes of RAM. This one could have come with 64 gigabytes of RAM, and that was just not enough. I needed 256, so I got the 256, loved it, used a lot of it, because what I tend to do is I will collect videos, store them, and some I will use immediately, but some will sit dormant for weeks, sometimes months, and in the case of my Asus monitor, almost a whole year before it was actually used. So because of that, I am a data hog and I need that extra space. The next thing is gonna be size. Like I said before, I absolutely needed something this size. Oh, password time. Call 5, the number is 000 and you're in. I needed something this big. I needed something this big because I wanted to have as much space. I've already said this before in the very beginning. I needed as much space as I could have to actually do whatever I wanted to do with this here. I needed this machine to be uncomfortable to have fun with and more comfortable to produce content with. I needed a workhorse, and that's the reason why I got something so big. The 10.5 was available at the time, and I chose not to get something that small because, again, I would have put it in my backpack, probably taken it on trips, and just use it to communicate and treat it like a cell phone because it was a little bit smaller. This, I treat it like it's more like a computer. And I process. This is a processing workhorse, in my opinion. Okay, so let's flip this bad boy over for a second here. This is the color. The color of this bad boy is gold. Why is this important? It's not just because of the dream that I had, that I had a actual iPad while I was dying and everything, and it wasn't just because of the dream, but just before I played Halo 5, I was listening to the podcast. Myself and my coworker, we were listening to it when we were going on business trips because there was something to listen to on the road instead of listening to the radio. And the beautiful part about this podcast, it was called Hunt for the Truth, was there was this one scene, and I'm saying it's a scene, but it's actually an audio book, like podcast, like audio book kind of thing, and it's partially acted out. It's kind of cool, but when you're driving down just that emptiness of I-90, you will begin to visualize the entire planet. And there is this mining planet, a filthy, nasty mining planet where they're grinding into a planet and getting this organically rich core stuff that's in there, and they're mining it so they can ship it to other places so they can make these fancy electronics and all this other stuff. And the guys were walking around with masks on, I believe, because they needed respirators because it was just a disgusting place and you didn't want that stuff to get into your lungs. And their clothes were just filthy and just disgusting. And as they're walking around with these expensive golden tablets, as filthy as they were. These were miners. These were guys that were just, hardworking, just dirty and just grungy and real, down to earth grunge. And this wasn't even the planet Earth; it was a totally different planet. But they're walking around with golden tablets and they're writing down stuff and they're checking their inventory and all the other things. And I said to myself, man, it'd be really nice one day if I had a golden tablet like that. I think somehow that image got put into my subconscious and later on manifested in dreams and other things while I was there on the table dying. And now I have it. And you know what? This thing is so gaudy. This thing is so flashy. I love the actual appearance of this machine. I mean, the color, you can't get the new ones in gold. You can only get the new ones in that drabby gray color. I don't think it comes in any other. I think it only comes in one color right now. I like my gold. Quality. Is this worth the money that you put into it? The answer to that question is absolutely yes. It's definitely worth every penny that you put into this freaking machine here. I am protecting mine with a screensaver on the top, another screensaver on the bottom, but I want my machine to last as long as possible, probably beyond its normal use. And that's the only reason why I'm being a little extra careful. I don't have to be, I just want to be that way. I also have a leather case for it because I always try to make sure that everything goes back into its place before I go to bed, before I go to work, before I leave work. I make sure that everything is back together as one because I want the quality of the device to stay exactly the same. I'm trying to protect it as best I can, not for reselling value, but for it to last as long as I want to. Because remember I said, I want this to explode in my face before I give it up because I like this machine so much. But is this worth the money? Yes, it absolutely is worth the money. It could almost replace my freaking laptop. Almost. The laptop still works as a data mover to move things back and forth. And possibly I will be doing a video on a USB hub that I've been experimenting with. It makes things a lot easier, but nothing is as not accurate. I think that's a bad choice. Nothing is as smooth as using the MacBook to move things around back and forth. The sound.
Any ideas?
You may not notice it at first, but Apple has 4 speakers. One here, one here, one here, one here. These 4 speakers have some kind of weird voodoo magic where wherever the top is, it realized that, hey, this is the top speaker. I'm going to sound slightly different from the bottom speakers to try to give this person a 3D-like sound. It works. It's crazy the way it actually functions, but it's pretty much like the rotation on the actual screen. Because hang on, use my other thumb. There we go. Because when you're looking at it, it rotates. That same device that does the rotations for you will also do something with the speakers and make the speakers sound good to you. I've listened to The Weeknd and other people singing on this device, and also with my Logitech speaker system. I get more pure music sound out of this device than I do out of my Logitech speaker system for my gaming stuff. I love the sound. It's just amazing. Again, quality, they put it in here. Could they have been a little bit cheaper and gave me a slightly bigger battery? Yeah, they could have, but they didn't. I'm going to cry about that later. I got a section down here called cons, so we'll be getting to that in just one moment. Now, this is something that I did not realize. We're talking about the camera right now. This is a nice camera on the front, but on the back, I was not aware that they put a 12 megapixel camera in this device when I initially got my hands on it. If I had known that immediately, I would have used this device to do all my YouTube videos the moment I got my hands on it. But at one point, I was still using my iPhone 6s Plus, and it was just comfortable. But I didn't know that there was a 12 megapixel camera in here, and it was so much better than what my iPhone had already had. The new iPhone that I have has an even better camera because it's got the dual camera in it, and the lenses that are in there give it just phenomenal capabilities. The only downside with this camera is it only runs, what the max it can run is 4K 30 frames per second. It cannot do 60, but it doesn't matter because on the inside of the machine itself, you can still process a 60 frame per second video in 4K from another device, like my iPhone. So I was happy that it can scale up, but again, the ability to record is very good on here, but it could be excellent if they had chosen a 60 frame per second in this device here. 30 frames is good, but again, I would love to have higher. I want to talk about Filmic a little bit while I'm talking about the camera, but they are not associated, so I'm going to let that be for now. I might do a video on that later. It's not Apple's fault this time, but it is Filmic fault this time. This is the original box that the Apple Pencil came in. This is all the paperwork and everything that comes with it. It also comes with one extra tip. You've already heard me say that, hey, I have an Apple Pencil. I love my Apple Pencil. And I do. Because the Apple Pencil is the very first time I've actually gotten a stylus or pencil, whatever you want to call it, and wore out the tip. My IBM ThinkPad, I never wore out the tip. I didn't use it enough to wear out the tip. I got 2 or 3 extra tips running around. It's garbage. Put it in the trash can and burn it. This bad boy here, I worked on this enough to break the tip. Now, whether I dropped it, boom, because I was just like running around or whatever, or I just rubbed it in until it like just went blunt or whatever, doesn't matter. I had never been able to replace a tip on any device until now, which is unique. And the pencil is definitely worth it if you're going to do any type of drawing and or if you're going to do any type of editing. Because when you're doing video editing, it actually feels very smooth to go back and forth, move this here, move that. There is a workflow that you'll develop while messing around with the bars, moving things here, moving things there, because your fingertips just too darn big. Using this makes it a lot easier. So I'm just saying the pencil is worth it if you are some type of content creator. And again, this is my first and only pencil. I have been a very lucky person because apparently some people have told me that their pencils broke in X amount of months. One person said their pencil broke in a year. I've been using this same pencil since 2016, November 2016. I've been using the same pencil. The power, sometimes I get a lot of power, sometimes I don't get as much power. Sometimes I don't have to charge this thing here for weeks, and I believe whatever kind of updates Apple is doing, it does affect it, and it also affects my machine. It also affects my pencil. But there, every once in a while, I'll start getting one moment.
Any ideas?
Ice in there. Every once in a while, I'll get a short charge and it won't go as long as I anticipated it to. And usually it's because Apple is suppressing some kind of software that affects both the tablet and affects the pencil itself. So it's something I can work with. It's not the worst thing in the world. Functionality on this thing is still 100%. The speed is really good. It just takes a while to get used to holding something that feels like porcelain in your hand instead of an ink pen in your hand or instead of a pencil in your hand. And it has this is the 1.0 version, so it doesn't have that slant edge like the newer one does, the 2.0. This is 1.0 here.